From shabby chic to golden city, here's how I transformed this basic boring old town into a true marvel of its region. Welcome to Concordia's old town. Hi guys! Welcome to my channel, Lunatic Place. I'm the Lunatic Place, Cities Skylines 2. Lo and behold, the city of Concordia! Today, we are here for what we came for, because it's time for detailing extravaganza! Let's take the bones of our city, which we created in the previous episode, and adorn them with something gorgeous. This was originally intended as a uniform episode with episode 2, but as I got into the detailing of it all, I realized just how much of a difference and thought pattern has to go into this final, possibly the most important step to making your city both realistic and beautiful. And though we have our infrastructure and backbones of our old town sorted out, don't be mistaken, because there's a hell lot of planning which must go into detailing something as ambitious as I don't know, just the centerpiece of your entire city. So without further ado, let's make our plan. It might seem like this is not the grandest of areas, but let me assure you that when we actually get down nitty and gritty into it, we are going to have our hands full. This is the historic town of Concordia, which is representative of Central European cities, mainly those in Poland, which is where most of my inspo comes from. Where else would we start, other than the beating heart of our city, the medieval town square where the central town hall is located? Here will be where we establish the pattern of tools such as props, net lanes and surface networks, which we will use across our entire old town. And when thinking about this town square, I am imagining sandstone pedestrianized walkways, cobblestone square with thereupon beer gardens, colorful umbrellas and gazebos, flower pots and decorative benches. This will be the key determining factor for the rest of our town. And next, we will take these results and replicate the detailing pattern using those same tools on our smaller square. Here we will have our old parking lot, some cobblestone streets, a market square with a few beer gardens and a farmer's market. Here we will also have our tram stop. Once our squares are laid in and established, we are going to focus on determining a detailing pattern for our inner old town streets. I'm imagining here intimate cobblestone streets, lots of hidden green spaces and awkward shapes, ironwork benches and lamplights, cobblestone courtyards with parking access wherever there are buildings with archways that lead there. The pinnacle of the north side key of our old town are possibly the school. Here, I'm using both the elementary and secondary German assets for the school buildings. I plan to fill up some of the blank spaces by adding more wings of the same assets using the respective static blockables. I would also like to extend a road onto the quay below, where we can have a school sports center and a parking lot. And on the topic of parking lots, we will need to plan for creative ways of introducing parking spaces to our city. European cities are notorious for difficult parking situations, but also creative ways of handling them. So as we progress further, I wish to create some parking spaces in the courtyards behind some of our old buildings. I'm imagining that anarchy, move it, and loads of patience will come in handy here. And at number 6, I wish to include the multi-story parking lot offering spaces for the government workers of our parliament building. And here will be the pedestrian haven of our old town. I would like to include a couple of ice cream booths, maybe market stands, a food stall, lots of benches, and smart green spaces. 8, 9, and 10 are probably going to be highly repetitive, as we will have already established detailing patterns, so the journey will continue, adding small parking spaces at backs of buildings, cobblestone streets, benches, and ironwork lamplights. That little green space triangle at number 10 throws itself at me as a good spot for a ramp down to an underground parking lot. So now, let's choose our tools. Okay, so let's go over our materials list. So we are first going to look at our net lanes and curbs mostly. So these are the curbs that we are going to be using in our detailing of our old town. I really like them because they are kind of old looking. You see that there's another curb over here. I want to use this one to merge asphalt roads with cobblestone roads. So this is just going to be kind of present on kind of like edges of city, of the old town. Meanwhile, this one is going to be the curb on all of the pedestrianized zones, all of the sidewalks, yada yada yada. Drains, I'm gonna use those, maybe not too much. I will use them strategically, but I feel like we really need to make sure that we have a proper irrigation system, or like a proper drainage, proper drainage system in our town. And here are the kind of like concrete drains with the drainage decals that I'm gonna be using in this variation. So this is our palette for that function. Next, we are going over our fence. So we are actually gonna be using these fences to fence off our beer gardens. They're very typical. Like, I just wanted something wooden and low, and that's it. Now these sandstone slabs, these are gonna go on our pedestrianized zones. I really like them because they really fit the color palette of what I want, and they're not too shiny that they would just like really pop out at you. They really blend well into the background, meanwhile giving you that kind of like sandstone warmth. So I really like it, and that's what we're gonna go for our pedestrianized zones. We're also gonna blend in like a variation of the sandstone slabs and these kind of golden bricks. I think that these golden bricks are probably gonna go onto like these kind of connector pieces where the different pedestrianized zones meet. So like we'll have the curb here, the sandstone slabs here, drain down the middle, and the bricks here on this connector piece. So that at least like the different variations of how this decal or surface rather positions itself is not gonna look weird where one street meets the other. And here are the cobblestone that we're gonna be using for our cobblestone roads all around, and our cobblestone courtyards at the backs of our buildings. So, and our cobblestone town squares. So here, all of this is gonna be cobblestone. And this is the one that I've chosen. There's a couple of different cobblestone surface networks, but I like the blue one in particular. It just jumps out at me, and I think that it makes a nice contrast with the sandstone, just like the blue and the yellow. I don't know much about the color theory, but I don't question it. It works. And also we're gonna use this sidewalk surface for any kind of like sidewalks by the cobblestone roads. So they're more grayer, they're more simple, but I like that they're kind of old looking. They have little bits and pieces of moss and grass popping through here and there. So I like that. I like how they go together with this one. It doesn't contrast too much with the sandstone slabs that we have here, and I think this entire color palette just really works well together. And once we like really cover our entire town with this, I think we're gonna create something really, really beautiful. Next, for our decals. So these are the drainage decals that we're gonna be using. Mostly these ones because I like them the most, but some of these and these might pop up as we're detailing for different purposes, different decals. And these are the planter decals that we're gonna be using. Probably I'm gonna use mostly the bigger ones, mostly the medium, because that one is just a little bit too big for some of those like teeny weeny corners. So yeah, that's where we're gonna be planting our trees on the sidewalks. And here, speed bumps, obviously I want to use them because a lot of these roads connect together. So if we're actually like extending a cobblestone network onto all of our like roads that the cars can drive on, not pedestrianized roads, Then I like to have speed bumps because A, it is realistic. There are speed bumps, especially in highly pedestrianized urban zones. But also it will allow me a space to kind of like cut off the cobblestone network, so I don't have one giant cobblestone network for all of the roads. This way, like, I can kind of like create the speed bump, say here, and then here. So then this bit is one single cobblestone network. So if I make a mistake and it disappears, the whole city doesn't lose its cobblestone streets, if that makes sense. It's kind of an idea. And next, so this was kind of like the initial idea of what I wanted to go through. I wanted to lay these networks over the pedestrianized roads, but in the end, I felt like I was gonna have more control and more ability to work with like curves and edges and stuff using this network and this curb. But they were the inspo list for what we're gonna do here, so I wanted to put them in as the kind of color palette of what I wanted coming into this. Then obviously we're gonna use bollards. This came from a mod, don't remember who uploaded it, but it's really nice. I'm probably gonna recolor it into black, and yeah, we're gonna have a lot of them because I want to have tram running through some of the pedestrianized zones, and I want to kind of like put the safety bollards in, make it nice. And then these are the Ironworks lamp lights. I really like those. I'm probably gonna make them blacker, probably gonna change the yellow into white, and that's it. And then these are the benches I'm gonna use. These are the benches I'm gonna use, and these are the planters I'm gonna use. I'm probably gonna put some trees into them. And these are the bins I'm gonna use. And then for lights, oh yeah, also the kind of like these planters, I'm gonna use them a lot, really like them, so they're on the list of our tools. Then for the lights, I like these ones because we're gonna have certain areas where the kind of like sidewalk and road gets kind of wide, so I want to have light on both like the road side and the pedestrian side. So I'm gonna use those mainly. In tighter areas, I'm just gonna illuminate the road. I'm gonna use this one. In super wide areas, I'm gonna use this one. And then for the courtyards, I'm gonna use bins, clothes rack, bike racks, and parking lots, which are coming with invisible roads going through arches. And here's what I mean. So you see, like, this building has an arch. If this was a road on which cars can drive, I think actually it has another road. So like, okay, cars can drive here. This building has an archway, so I can pull an invisible car lane through this building and then onto here, and maybe have a parking lot over here connecting. So this way the cars can actually come in here, and then I can just disregard what this looks like if I'm placing all the networks that lay over the road, and I can make it seem like the road kind of continues in here. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So I think we've done a very thorough planning. Let's actually get into it. So we begin by lining our streets with the curb lane networks. Here I opted in to plan for a large green space surrounding our city hall. This is not the height of realism, but I personally have a grudge against empty spaces in this game, so that would not let me be. It also allows me to experiment with our pedestrian streets a little bit more. Then we go for the sandstone slab pedestrian streets and see our primary colors illuminate the square. The initial design begins to take place here. Next, I add the major piece of the puzzle, the cobblestone. And what effect does it give us? Honestly, I love it. But I feel that here in particular, the addition of our green spaces gives us a good area of separation and break in the pattern, which otherwise would just look perhaps a little bit too plain. I also add our grey, slightly mossy brick sidewalks along our buildings. Here here, having well-defined contours of our pedestrian streets gives us our square a unique geometry which otherwise would just look too blended. And one of the limitations of the game is that the custom surface networks, they spawn at different angles, so connecting our pedestrian crossings with the golden bricks allows us to hide those spawn issues which come with using the custom networks. And here, we go for these very brick networks at crossing sections of our pedestrian streets. Going into this has gotten me to evaluate how will our trams run through the core of the town. After looking at the overall roads within our old historic center and having the desire to have the trams run into the main town square, I decided to update the network to run as such. And so it will hit the commercial old town zones, the town square, the market square, and the schools. Perfection! And here, we need to fix up how we will resolve the question of having tram lines run through our pedestrianized zones. I propose to A. Line the tracks with our stone curbs, then have the track run through cobblestone, meanwhile our pedestrian streets stay using the sandstone slabs. And this gives us a very unique look. Now that we have our paths and our square and our trams, we can dive in deeper into the task and draw out our gutters. I line the edges of our town square with the concrete gutters and then overlay them with the drain decals at irregular intervals. Edges I mark with the round drain decals for some variation. Next, we place our planter decals where it seems that greenery is lacking. Now I love green spaces and this is my idealistic city. Not exactly realistic in the way of really making something downtrodden and filthy, but it is my daydream after all. Next up, we go over with our bollards, and I am so glad that this mod came out. I'm so sick of using safety cones and pretending that they are an actual bollard. Now, the next ideal step would be to have some real ironwork old looking bollards, but for now, this will do. I also repaint them all black, just like my soul. So, let's see. We've got bollards, we've got fences. Let's add streetlights. And I do want to go all out with these to provide light and safety at night to all of my night owl citizens. I line both ends of my pedestrian streets with these. And look at the city, there's already starting to look more alive. And now, let's take a look at the defining factors, as this is, after all, the city square. So first, I will focus on making the front of my city hall an area which is definitive to the town. And the fountain does this perfectly. And while on the topic of fountains, let's add 2 more at either side because we have the cake and we can eat it too. Now that my centerpiece is in, I can work around it. Planters, poplar trees, benches, bins, iron lamp lights, and obviously drains. Make it all come to life all the more. Let's continue this pattern and draw up our beer gardens, which is my favorite part of all Polish city squares. I really do miss them here in Ireland. And so, I want to give them my special homage. A beer garden first needs to have a deck. Let's use these patio decals. Are they decals? Props? Which I'm pretty sure came with one of the regional packs because last time I had to improvise with wood plank stacks to create this. And once we have the shape of our beer garden, let's contour it with our wooden low fences, then planters and poplars. Next, we can add chairs and tables, and since the patios already came with some of these, I opted to use the same asset for continuity's sake. Finally, we can just add the umbrellas and gazebos, repaint them various colors, and repeat another 5 times. Finally, we can go over the rest of the zones with benches and planters and bins to combat the ache of having empty spaces. And to have these pedestrian streets looking less empty, we add these planters, benches, bins, and ironwork lamp lights at regular intervals between the gutters. Oftentimes, when you see a detailing pattern repeat often, I try to employ some sort of symmetry to it. This way I can replicate this pattern easier once I know which tools I'm using in a certain area. And now that our pedestrian streets are taken care of, let's address the outline. Let's go in with our tram studs. First, I place the seats facing either side of the track, then a shield to protect them from the elements with these shelter props, and finally I go in to add electronic street ads all around the square, using this gas station advertisement tower, which I lower down using Move It to appear as just a logo advertisement. At the very end, I add the greenery. The shrubs, the bushes, the trees. These come in last because they A, give the most character to your city, and B, take up a lot of space. Cover up the spaces, and even though this is one of those realism breaking aspects of my design, I love to dream of greener, more aesthetic cities, and since I am given the opportunity to create, I like to remain idealistic in my creation. And here it is. Now, for our market square. This is the place where traditionally the Sunday's markets would occur in the past. Now it is an aging parking lot and our old-time tram stop. Let's see what we have learned. We begin by drawing up the net lane networks, the curbs, the gutters, remembering about the tram lanes and giving our pedestrianized zones a unique feel. Next, we move on to the surfaces, concrete mossy brick sidewalks, cobblestone streets, cobblestone square, and sandstone slabs upon the pedestrian streets. This is where we create our first midpoint between pedestrian streets and roads used by vehicles. Now it's time for the decals, gutters, drains, and tree planters. Great, so surfaces are done, time for props. We begin with lamps all around our square and its adjacent roads. And then, bollards extravaganza! Okay, let's hit the square with some beer gardens. That building in the middle looks like a perfect spot for a Polish pierogi manufacturer, so let's give our citizens a beautiful spot to enjoy these pierogis. And now beans, because we prefer to have clean cities. Graffiti is a great way to give our town more character. Now this is my daydream, so I prefer to use those more artsier ones personally. And now for the farmers market. I diversify the types of stall props we use here, along with ice cream stands, benches, an old school news kiosk. Now this is a spot which would warrant for me waking up early to get there. And we follow this up with some ads because, you know, capitalism. Next up is our tram stop. We take the bleachers bench asset, cover it up with a shelter, and place some ads on either side, and voila! Now, our pedestrian streets need benches. Let's go ahead and add our planters, bins, benches, and ironwork lamp lights. Now, we adorn the rest of our streets with planters and benches too. And finally, the trees to complete the project. And here we go. And here is the fruit of our labor today. The historic city center is certainly coming together. We built our main square with our city hall, romantic archway buildings surrounding a busy town square with beer gardens, tram lanes, and green spaces galore. This is where it all began. Secondly, we have taken our detail pattern and applied it to the secondary square, our historic market square, which now functions additionally as a parking lot, and where we establish how our pedestrian zones will flow into the roadway network. I absolutely love where this is going, and I can't wait to show you what I have in store next. So next up, we will take a look at our inner town blocks and tenement courtyards in this historic Concordia city center. We will also expand ever more into our quays with the school sports complex down below our elementary and secondary schools. I cannot wait to show you guys how that's gonna go. Alright, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to like, subscribe, drop a comment, introduce yourself, let me know that you're watching. I hope to see you next up in Concordia next Monday. I'll be here for you most Mondays with fresh new progress episodes of our town, so make sure to check in and see how it is going. Okay, bye!